do you want me to do, Akunna? You think I am happy? No, this is eating me up, and I've also been trying my best. We are in this together, and yet you make it seem like it's my fault that we can't have a child. I am a complete woman, Akunna. I have loved you, tried to understand you while being a good wife to you. But you don't even look at me. And you treat me like trash. What do you want me to do? Tell me what you want me to do, Akunna. Give me a child, you witch. Once upon a time, in a certain village called Ughelli, there lived a man named Akunna. Now, Akunna was no ordinary man. He was a fisherman, but not just any kind of fisherman. His name alone carried weight like a king's drum. He grew up without a father, yet, by the sweat of his brow and the bend of his back, he made something meaningful out of his life through fishing. Now, let me tell you this for free. Akunna was not the only fisherman in Ughelli. The village had plenty of men who claimed to know how to cast nets. But between you and me, if all of them gathered their fishes together for one market day, Akunna's single catch could still disgrace them. His hands were blessed, and even the rivers feared him. The water itself seemed to whisper, "Akunna is coming, prepare the fattest fishes," whenever they smelled him from afar. There was never a time he went to the river and returned empty-handed. Even on days when the sun was angry and the waters calm like sleeping goats, when other fishermen's nets came back crying with nothing but mud and stubborn crabs, Akunna would still drag home fish that looked like they swallowed palm kernels for breakfast, and trust the villagers' tongues. Anyways, if the mouth doesn't talk, the teeth will bite. Rumors flew around like bats at night. I'm sure that man is into something diabolical, one villager would hiss. Is he the only fisherman in this whole Ughelli? Another would snap, adjusting his wrapper as if his poverty was Akunna's fault. Maybe, who knows? Maybe he has an unusual agreement with the water spirits, some would whisper, their eyes wide and ready to swear they once saw him bowing to the river. But others, trying to sound wise, would stroke their chins and mutter, maybe he's just lucky. Yet, the majority, their jealousy was louder than a town crier's bell. Because come to think of it, how could Akunna be the only fisherman who had built not just one but big hut in his late father's compound? How could he be the only one in the entire village that owned a shiny bicycle, riding it with style, while other men's feet looked like worn-out sandals from trekking? And to crown it all, the man was running a cattle farm on the side. A fisherman with cows. This one is called an abomination of success. Surely there must be something he was hiding from them. But the truth, besties, the truth was plain as daylight. All these rumors were nothing but envy. For everything Akunna had, he worked with sweat and sense. He wasn't just a man who threw nets and prayed for luck, no. He studied the water like a scholar. He knew where the river was sleeping and when it was awake. He knew where the fattest fishes gathered for their secret meetings. And he never wasted his time like those other fishermen who spent their days gallivanting around the village, swallowing calabashes of palm wine and engaging in baseless arguments about who had the biggest yam ban. And whenever they felt motivated, they would drag their tired nets with their protruding bellies to the river, only to return home with loads of complaints. That could never be Akunna. When others were drunk and shouting, Akunna was quietly at the river, net in hand. Not that he didn't visit the palm wine joint or sit to chat with his friends, but he was a principled man. He would always say, "There is time for everything." Those were his watchwords, the very secret behind his success. A secret so simple, yet the villagers ignored it because envy makes the eyes blind. So while their tongues wagged and wagged like goat tails, Akuna continued to prosper. People came from far and wide to buy his fish, and before long, Akuna's pockets were swelling like baskets full of fresh mangoes. He was making so much money that even the chief's wife was now bargaining for his catch. As the years rolled by, Akuna looked at his life and decided that money was no longer his problem. He had more than enough wealth to start up his own family. It was time to pick a beautiful wife and begin raising children who would run about the compound like restless goats. When Akuna finally told his mother, Norma, about his intentions to settle down, her joy nearly carried her to the heaven that evening. For years, she had worried about her only son. Ewo, was he planning to marry fish from the river? Was he planning to grow old with only his net and hooks? Each time she raised the issue, Akuna would wave her off like a stubborn housefly and insist, Mama, I am not ready yet. But now he was ready. Norma could not contain herself. She sprang up with the strength of a maiden, clapped her hands and shouted, Namo! So you finally want to settle down, eh? Hey, my son, I will finally carry my grandchildren before I die. The gods be praised. She burst into joyful singing, shaking her waist around the compound as though she was auditioning for the village dancers. The neighbors even peeped through the fence, wondering if palm wine had entered Mama Akuna's head. But no, it was pure joy. The kind of joy that makes you feel so intoxicated like you had just drunk wine. Akuna only stood there with a smile plastered across his handsome face, watching his mother dance like a woman who had just discovered gold in her backyard. The search for a wife began immediately, and believe me, my friend, it was not supposed to be a difficult task at all. In fact, it should have been easier than frying akara. Why? Because I forgot to tell you something earlier. Akuna was not just wealthy, he was dangerously fine. Yes, I mean dangerously fine. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his skin glistened like fresh palm oil in the sun, and that his chiseled face could make a maiden's heart tumble like a calabash rolling down a hill. With his wealth added on top, Akuna was the hottest bachelor in Ughelli, the kind of man who could sneeze in the market and 10 maidens would rush to fetch water for him. And whenever his name entered the conversations under the popular Udara tree in Mbafo's compound, you should have known the Udara tree by now, where the maidens gathered every night to gist, gossip and sharpen their tongues. The whole atmosphere would suddenly catch fire. The air would grow hot, as though the tree itself was blushing. The maidens would bat their eyelashes like hens, trying to catch the attention of a fat cock, their voices rising like drummers competing for attention. If I marry a man like Akuna, one maiden would declare boldly, nothing he ever does would make me angry, whether his fine face and those heavy pockets. I will worship the very ground he walks on. The others would burst into mocking laughter, rolling their eyes. Look at this one. He must be joking. What makes you think a man like Akuna, I mean the hottest bachelor in the whole Ughelli kingdom, would look at you? I bet shift one side, dreamer. And just like that, the quarrel would begin. They would argue, hiss and trade insults over a man who did not even know they existed. The Udara tree itself became weary of their nightly drama. The poor tree must have said in its heart, why won't you people allow me rest? But the maidens would continue until late in the night, fighting like cats over meat. Then at last, with pride burning in their eyes, they would storm off angrily into their huts. Their parting words were always the same. Let's see who he will finally choose, whether it will be me or you. You can now imagine the explosion of joy that shook the Udara tree the night the rumors reached the maiden's ears that Akuna was finally ready to pick a wife. Ha! My dear besties, if you were there, you would have thought a war had just ended and victory had been declared. The maidens screamed until the poor Udara tree shook its branches. They jumped, danced, clapped, and even rolled on the ground as if the ground itself was part of their celebration. It was jubilation, pure jubilation that rose higher than the moon. The maidens forgot their usual quarrels and insults. This was no longer time for small cat fights. This was the season of the real competition. My people, besties, the market of Ughelli did not see this one coming at all. On that After market day, the maidens stormed in like an army of peacocks. New clothes, shiny beads, powder, rogue, palm kernel oil mixed with camwood. Anything and everything that could add beauty was thrown into their baskets. The poor market women were confused. Was it a festival? Was the king throwing a feast? They whispered amongst themselves, shaking their heads. The only time they had ever witnessed such a rush was during the Great New Yam Festival, and yet the festival was not even close. But who had time to explain? Certainly not the maidens. Every one of them had something to prove, and no one wanted to look less than the other. In fact, bye-bye to broke boyfriends for now. They were temporarily fired. Maybe, just maybe, after the silent war was over, the broke lovers would be called back and forgiven. But for now, the maidens had only one focus: Akunna. And you would think that was where the madness would end. Ha! You don't know the village maidens. That was just the opening dance. The real madness was everywhere Akunna set his fine feet. The path he usually took to the river was suddenly like a fashion parade. The river itself, the poor river, now had more spectators than fishermen. Even his house was not spared. The maidens lined themselves up in their rainbow-colored attire, shining brighter than masquerades during festivals. Each one held gifts, calabashes of palm wine, smoked fish, ripe banana, whatever their poor pockets could afford. They battered their eyelashes until you would think sand entered their eyes. They wrinkled their waists like stubborn pigs falling into a ditch. And their voices, my people, their voices turned into the funniest sounds your ears would ever hear. Sweet one moment, squeaky the next, all in the name of attracting Akunna. And if by mistake, just one small mistake, Akunna opened his mouth to compliment any of them, hey! That maiden would immediately blush and shine like a new calabash washed in the stream. She would spend the whole day walking around the village like a purging chicken, cheeks red, heart pounding, feeling like she had already won the crown. It was a sight that would even make the ancestors laugh from their graves. Truly hilarious. But there was a problem. You see, Akunna truly wanted a wife, but not just any ordinary woman. No. His eyes were not for every rapper that swayed in Ughelli. He carried in his heart a long, complicated list, longer than the chief's tax records. Akunna was very much aware of his own fine looks. After all, mirrors do not lie. And he wanted a woman who would complement him in every sense. Tall, light-skinned, long hair that could sweep the ground, a pointed nose, sharp enough to slice okra, well-curved hips that could make even the oldest village elders forget their yam bands. A woman carefully and specially designed by the gods themselves. And not just beauty, no. The woman must be the kind that, once she stepped into a crowd, heads would turn and mouths would hang open like broken calabashes. And above all else, her family background must carry a history of fruitfulness. After all, Akunna was the only child, and he wanted children enough to fill a classroom. Yes, enough to raise a football team and still have some left on the bench. The very first time Akunna had opened this list to his friend Ikenna, hey, my brother, Ikenna nearly collapsed. He laughed so hard that his chair almost threw him to the ground. When he finally caught his breath, He wiped his tears and said, "My dear friend, it is good to desire something wonderful, but let me tell you, finding a woman who will give you peace of mind should be more important than all these qualities that would fade like morning dew. Unless, of course, you have direct access to the gods and can pay them to mold you a wife with clay. After all, you have the money." But Akunna, he wasn't even listening. His ears were blocked with stubbornness. He believed with all his heart that such a woman existed, one who matched his description perfectly and who could still bring him peace of mind and fill his compound with noisy children. And that was why, the day his eyes fell on Achalugo, he nearly forgot his own name. She was returning from the stream, her water pot balanced on her head as though her neck was crafted from Iroko wood. Akunna stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes stretching so wide that you would think he had seen a spirit. Was this a goddess walking on the red sun of Ugeli? Achalugo was a daughter of Echidime, a very popular palm wine tapper in the village of Ugeli. And listen, my friend, Achalugo was not like the other maidens of the land, no. She was beautiful, but not ordinary beauty. Her beauty was the kind that once your eyes fell on her, your heart would refuse to rest for days. You could drink a whole calabash of palm wine, yet still see her face floating inside the drink. Her features, perfect. Everything about her looked as though the gods had gathered in a council to design one maiden specially for Ugeli. But what made her stand out were not just her looks, it was her character. Achalugo was the correct definition of beauty with sense. She was well raised. No, you would never find her under the Odara tree where the other maidens spent their evenings gossiping, fighting, and learning all sorts of bad habits. That was not Achalugo's portion. She was either at home helping with house chores or at the market assisting her mother to sell her wares. She wasn't always gallivanting about the streets, clapping and giggling at every young man that passed by. If not for her beauty, in fact, many would hardly have noticed her at all. Achalugo was reserved, very reserved. Several men had already come knocking, begging for her hand in marriage, but Achalugo, she was not easily moved. Her heart had not yet found that man who could make it beat like the village drums on festival morning. She wasn't asking for much. No gold, no crowns. All she wanted was a man who would make her truly happy. And that fateful day, as she walked past Akunna on her way back from the stream, balancing her water pot with grace, she greeted him warmly with her soft voice. That one greeting was enough. Akunna's heart jumped as though somebody had poured cold water on him. Right there, he knew he had just found himself a wife. But Achalugo was no easy catch. She was not like those other maidens who paraded about in rainbow colors, biting their tongues and twisting their waists until their bones nearly snapped, all in the name of getting Akunna's attention. Achalugo was a different kettle of fish. If he wanted this one, he had to work for her. And fortunately, work was the only language Akunna understood perfectly. And so, Akunna rolled up his sleeves and began the labor of love. Every morning, he arrived at her doorstep with the biggest fish his net had delivered. His smile as warm as fresh akara from the frying pan. When he returned from the market, he always had a gift in hand, a beaded necklace here, a beautiful wrapper there. He never missed an opportunity to accompany her down to the river to fetch water, talking and cracking dry jokes. And though those jokes, they were so dry that even the sun would have rejected them. But Achalugo still laughed, and her laughter always warmed his heart more than the finest palm wine. It truly seemed like something sweet was beginning to blossom between them. And the villagers who knew Achalugo well, they were always quick to encourage Akunna. My son, you are making the right decision. I just hope she agrees to marry you. Achalugo is a good girl, a very good girl. But the other maidens of Ugeli, they were not even having it. After all their bleaching creams, rainbow wrappers, painted lips, and late nights of batting of eyelashes. All they managed to get from Akunna were just one or two dry compliments. And now look at him, hovering around Achalugo, a maiden who had not even done a single thing to win him. Their anger was hotter than fresh pepper soup. They had already hated Achalugo before, but this one she had just done, snatching their dream husband without sweating for it. That was the last straw. Their hatred doubled, even tripled until it grew fat like a well-fed goat. Every evening, under that long-suffering Udara tree, their tongues wagged. They cursed and cursed Achalugo until the Udara tree itself must have said, "Chai, these girls will finish this my back with curses one day." They called her names, poured insults, and planned her downfall in whispers. But when the curses finished and their throats grew dry, they had no choice but to crawl back to their broke boyfriends. So much for wasting all that time and money. Truly, it was like fetching water with a basket. As for Achalugo, she didn't mind them one bit. She simply carried herself with quiet dignity, as if the curses were only breeze passing through her ears. And as the days passed, Akunna's determination only grew stronger, while Achalugo slowly opened her heart. Their love was like a flower, first a shy bud, then a gentle petal, until finally it bloomed into something beautiful. Akunna could not contain his excitement. Every time he sat with his friends at the palm wine joint, he would brag endlessly. His chest swelled, his eyes shone, and his voice grew loud enough to scatter the flies buzzing around. My friends, he would say, have you seen her pointed nose? Have you seen her slim waist? The curves, my people, the curves. And from my research, yes, he called it research, her family has a history of being fertile. She will give me healthy, bouncing babies. He would then laugh with pure excitement, clapping his hands like a little child who had just been given hot akara with pepper. His friends would shake their heads and laugh, wondering if Akunna had swallowed love potion by mistake. A few months later, the long-awaited day came. Akunna got married to Achalugo in a very elaborate ceremony. His joy knew no bounds. He was marrying the most beautiful woman in Ughelli, and he was determined to show her off to the world. The entire village poured out in numbers, from the old men with walking sticks to the little children with runny noses. Everybody came to witness the spectacle, and what a day it was. There was more food than the stomachs could carry, more palm wine than the throats could swallow, and dancing that made the ground itself tremble. Norma's joy could not be contained. She danced like she had been waiting her whole life for this very day, singing at the top of her lungs, her wrapper nearly loosening from her waist as she jumped and twirled. The villagers looked on and agreed. This was not just a marriage ceremony, it was a festival of joy. But after the marriage, when Achalugo moved into her husband's compound, that was where the real story began. At first, as it always happens in the beginning, everything was as sweet as ripe mango. Achalugo was indeed living the dream in her husband's house. Akunna treated her like a queen whose throne was padded with wrappers. She wore the best clothes in the market. Her neck glittered with shiny beads, and her waist jingled with the sound of wealth. And Akunna, he never returned from the market empty-handed. This was not in his nature. After selling his fish each day, he would come back with roasted meat wrapped in leaves. Achalugo loved roasted meat so much that under the big tree in their compound, husband and wife would sit, tearing the meat with their teeth, licking their fingers, gossiping about the villagers, and laughing as though laughter was free from heaven. Their home was overflowing with love and joy, and the villagers noticed. Some villagers admired the sweet bond these two shared, wishing secretly that their own marriages could taste like that. But others, envy was killing them like a ripe cashew. They hissed, in the corners of the village, their eyes sharp with jealousy. But who cared? Love was shining, and the jealous one could as well chew their tongues if they wanted. But then, as the months rolled into a year, Akunna's joy began to shrink slowly, like a cloth forgotten too long in the sun. By now, he had expected a bulging belly, or maybe even a little boy chasing chickens around the compound, or a baby girl clinging to her mother's wrapper. But nothing like that was happening. Achalugo had fallen sick a few times since the marriage, and every time Akunna's excitement would rise like morning dew. Ah, this must be Ito. She's pregnant, he would think, rubbing his hands like a child about to eat hot akara. But in the end, it was always fever. No baby, no bulging stomach. Achalugo would recover and her belly remained flat. Flat like a grinding stone. This began to trouble him greatly. Had he not done his research? Was her family not known for fruitfulness? How could the womb of a woman from such a lineage remain silent? He scratched his head and finally comforted himself with one conclusion. Maybe the gods are only testing my patience. So he decided to give it more time. But as the years crawled on, nothing changed. No cries of a baby, no running feet, no little hands knocking over calabashes. The compound that once rang with laughter became quiet, too quiet, as if the joy in the house had packed its load and relocated to another village. Achalugo too began to feel the heat. The man who once danced around her like a goat tied to a fresh yam pan had changed. Akunna had become another person entirely. Their conversations dried up like a river in Harmattan. He came back from the market with a moody face, shoulders heavy, and sharp tongue. He shouted at every little mistake, sometimes even before the mistake fully happened. Gone were the roasted meats. Gone were the surprise gifts. Gone was the husband who once looked at her beauty as though she was the only star in the sky. Now he barely even looked her way. This was a very painful reality for Achalugo, one she never in her wildest dreams imagined she would face. She too wanted children. She longed to hear the cry of a baby in the compound, to feel little feet running across the yard, to watch her own back bending under the weight of motherhood. But 3 years had passed since she tied the knot with Akunna, and still no single sign. Her body was working like every other woman's. Her monthly flow came faithfully. Her womb prepared itself as nature designed, but still silence. The womb that should have been a cradle remained empty like a deserted calabash. The problem was there, but what it was, Achalugo could not explain. I don't think she was folding her hands waiting for miracle to fall from the skies, no. Achalugo tried everything she could. She visited herbalists, knelt before spiritualists, swallowed every bitter herb and strange concoction that anyone recommended. She offered sacrifices until the chickens in the village began to fear her footsteps. But still, nothing changed. Each new month came with new expectations, new hope, and each time the crimson sign returned, her heart collapsed. She would sit alone in her hut, her wrapper soaked with tears, crying until her eyes turned red like fresh palm oil. The worst of it all, the sharpest knife in her heart, was not even the barrenness. It was the way her husband was slowly drifting from her. The man who once looked at her with admiration now looked at her like a stranger in his own house. The laughter they once shared had turned into silence, and the silence had turned into blame. Every day, his eyes accused her. Every word from his lips carried bitterness. Achalugo carried the guilt alone, as if she had committed a crime against the gods themselves. One incident that broke Achalugo's spirit into pieces happened just recently. Adamma, yes, Adamma was her childhood friend, had visited her to braid her hair. Adamma had married a man from the next kingdom, only a year after Achalugo's own marriage. But now, she was already the proud mother of 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl, like a ready-made picture for a clay pot design. The braiding took long, because in between pulling and twisting hair, the 2 friends were catching up on old times. But before they knew it, the sun had disappeared, and Akunna had returned home earlier than usual, only to find out that dinner had not been prepared. Hey, besties, that night, the only horrible words Akunna didn't say to Achalugo were the ones he forgot. His mouth poured fire like a blacksmith's furnace. "Look at you," he shouted, his eyes blazing. "Good for nothing, beautiful but useless. To take care of the home, you can't. To cook food when you're supposed to, you cannot. And should we even talk about having a child? That one is full story for another day. 3 years at Chalugo, 3 years of marriage and nothing to show for it. You have ruined all my plans. Look at how empty this compound is. I worked so hard all my life, only for you to come in and make me miserable. Look at your friend, see her. When did she even marry? Just 13 months after us, and she already has 2 children. And you, barren woman." He hissed long and loud, then stormed out of the house, his footsteps shaking the ground. Achalugo felt like the earth itself should open and swallow her whole. Hot tears spilled down her cheeks, washing away every brave smile she had worn earlier. Because just before Akunna walked in, she had been telling Adamma beautiful things about him, painting him as the perfect husband. And when Adamma had asked about her struggles with childbirth, a question that pricked her heart like a thorn, she had only laughed and brushed it aside, saying they just wanted to enjoy themselves for a while before having children. But now, the truth had come pouring out like palm wine from a broken calabash. The shock in Adamma's eyes was sharp. How could her friend pretend everything was rosy when she was clearly drowning? Achalugo wept openly as Adamma wrapped her arms tightly around her. "How long has this been going on?" Adamma whispered, her old face wet with pity. "Are you sure you should still remain here? Come here, Nwannem. I'm so sorry you are going through this." "It's my fault," Achalugo sobbed. "It's been over 3 years. I ruined his dreams. I am the reason he is unhappy." Adamma shook her head, holding her tighter. "But you are dying inside, my friend. You are not the gods. He should be supporting you and not tearing you down like this. Love is not conditional." Those words pierced deep into Achalugo's heart and stayed there long after Adamma left. That night was a wound she could never forget. The public embarrassment, the cruel words, the shame. Yet still, she refused to fully agree with Adamma. In her mind, if only she had given Akunna children, things would have been different. He would still love her, still laugh with her. She loved him so deeply that she carried the entire blame on her shoulders. She didn't want to accept that love was not conditional. But that love, that guilt, that sacrifice, none of it changed anything. In fact, as the days and months passed, things only got worse. From that night onwards, Akunna's tongue became sharper than a freshly honed cutlass. Each time he quarreled with Achalugo, his words were so bitter that he could peel yam without a knife. "Look at you," he would roar, his voice shaking the roof. "A woman who cannot cook well, who cannot give me children, who cannot even smile without looking like a dying goat. What exactly did I marry? Beauty. This beauty has turned to bitter ashes in my mouth, to fiahwa." Sometimes he would point at her stomach and sneer. Flat like a grinding stone, 3 years of marriage, and my compound is as empty as a hunter's bag after chasing a rabbit with no arrows. Achalugo, the gods cheated me the day they sent you into my life. You are a curse, Tofia. He would hiss and storm out, leaving her in tears. His new spot was now the village palm wine joint. But if you think his mouth was bad, wait until you hear the villagers. Besties, Ugeli is not a place where secrets survive. They would rather die than mind their own business. It didn't take long before tongues began wagging. And you know that when tongues wag, ears multiply. The bitter maidens. Those same ones who once wasted their time painting their faces and batting eyelashes for Akunna were now married women with children tied to their backs. The moment they saw Achalugo at the stream, their laughter was louder than the splashing water. Hey! See our Madame Beauty, one would sneer, balancing her water pot with pride. So fine, yet no child to call her mama. A whole Achalugo with skin like oil but womb like a locked barn. Another would join in, clapping her hands dramatically. If I had Achalugo's beauty, maybe I would just hang it on my wall like a decoration, because what else is it good for? At the market, it was worse. As Achalugo walked past with her basket of fish and spices, the women would whisper loudly enough for her ears to hear. Chai, the gods are wise. They said beauty does not cook soup, and now we see beauty also does not give children. One can't have everything indeed. They would burst into laughter, shaking their wrappers, their babies kicking on their backs as if joining in the mockery. Achalugo's heart would crumble each time, but she swallowed her pain and walked on, her tears hiding inside her chest. And yet, when she returned home, her husband's insult awaited her like a hunter's trap. Her house had become a place of sorrow, the village a place of mockery. Even the Udara tree, where the maidens once quarreled over Akunna, was now a court where women mocked Achalugo freely. It was one early morning, before the cock had even finished its second crow, that Nneoma stormed into her son's compound like a whirlwind. Her voice tore through the air louder than a town crier's gong. Achalugo! Achalugo! She screamed, stamping her feet and beating her chest. Come out here. You witch, come out here and untie my son. Give my son a child or release him so that he can remarry and give me grandchildren. I am an old woman. My knees are weak, my eyes are dim, and before I die, I want to carry my son's child. Please give me a child, I beg you, Achalugo. The entire compound scattered with her cries. Neighbors rushed to their fences, some pretending to weep, others carrying empty calabashes just to watch the drama. Achalugo came out slowly, her face pale, her wrapper tied tightly across her chest. She tried to calm her mother-in-law down, stretching her hands in peace, but Nneoma pushed her words away like smoke. Will you shut your mouth, barren woman? Nneoma begged. And do not call me mama, you have no child for me. You have tied my son like a goat and wasted his strength. May your womb open or may thunder strike it. My enemies are laughing at me, and it's because of you. She cursed and cursed, her voice carrying across the village like a masquerade song. And from that day, Nneoma did not stop. She pressed Akunna like a peso pounds yam, hissing at him in the evenings. Send her away and take another wife. The villagers are mocking us. We cannot continue to live in this shame. More years passed, and mockery, it was flowing everywhere. Now at the palm wine joints, after 2 guards, the men would start. Akunna, one would call out, grinning wickedly. Are you even sure your manhood is working? Because we don't understand. 3, 4, 5 years of marriage, and not even one child, one single pikin. Another would slap his thigh and laugh until he choked on palm wine. Maybe the fish you are catching have swallowed the strength of your manhood though. The whole joint would roar with laughter, and Akunna's face would tighten like dry leather. Their jokes were meant as laughter, but to him they were burning arrows. His shame turned to anger, and his anger turned to hatred. Despite Achalugo's beauty, Akunna no longer saw her as the jewel he once chased with everything in him. His tongue became knives and his hands became whips. At the slightest mistake, soup too salty, firewood arranged wrongly, he would rain insults on her. And soon, the insult turned into beatings, real heavy beatings. The once lovely home became a war front. Every day was tears and bruises for Achalugo. She had become a shadow of herself, pale, thin and sad. Yet she endured it all, swallowing the pain, hoping the gods would remember her. But the gods were silent, and Akunna grew worse. One evening, Achalugo decided she was going to speak to her husband. They were both in this together, and she needed him to understand that it was not her fault, that she was also really trying her best. Maybe he would understand. Maybe they could rekindle the very beautiful love story they both once shared. Maybe, just maybe, they could patiently wait together with understanding until everything fell into place. That evening, she prepared a very delicious meal dressed up in one of her favorite clothes, the one he had once bought for her and truly admired whenever she wore it back in the day. Then she sat in front of the hut and waited for his return. When he came back, she greeted him warmly and served him food. But he didn't even respond to her greetings. Neither did he even look at her. Achalugo held back the tears welling up in her eyes as she stood before him like a confused goat. She watched him open the plates, swallow the first bowl of fufu, then another and another, before he sprang to his feet, flinging the plate off the table as the soup splashed on Achalugo. And what is that? What was that nonsense? Achalugo stared at him confused. Food, she stammered. What was the problem? She had prepared that meal with so much love and care, and it came out well, so what was he saying? You call that food, Achalugo? It's not enough that you can't give me a child, now you want to poison me and take all my properties. Hey, you are evil, and you disgust me so much you can't do anything, just fine and useless, he screamed. Achalugo broke into tears as her whole body shook. What do you want me to do, Akunna? You think I am happy? No, this is eating me up, and I've also been trying my best. We are in this together, and yet you make it seem like it's my fault that we can't have a child. I am a complete woman, Akunna. I don't know why the gods have shut my womb or who I offended. I have loved you, tried to understand you while being a good wife to you, but you don't even look at me. And you treat me like trash. What do you want me to do? Tell me what you want me to do, Akunna. Give me a child, you witch. A child is all I ask for. And is that too much to ask? Akunna screamed as he kicked the plate and stormed into the hut while hurling curses at her. Rubbish. I regret ever wasting my time and money marrying you. Achalugo fell on the floor crying as tears spilled down her cheeks. She clutched her chest tightly as she sobbed bitterly. 5 years. 5 wasted years of her youth and her love. Weeks passed, and then one evening it happened. She had cooked soup, and in her tiredness, she had mistakenly added too much pepper to the soup while cooking. That night, all hell was let loose. Akunna exploded like a keg of gunpowder. He beat her so mercilessly that neighbors had to rush in, fearing he would kill her. With her body bruised, her spirit crushed, and her heart broken into pieces, Achalugo finally decided that it was time to face reality. This was no longer marriage, and her life was now on the line. If she remained here, Akunna would end her life one day. So, she tied her wrapper, gathered her few belongings, and moved back to her father's house. When Achalugo returned to her father's house, hey! The whole of Ughelli caught fire with gossip. She became the hottest topic under the sun, hotter than fresh akara oil. Everywhere you turned, her name was on people's lips. At the markets, at the stream, even in the farms, mouths wagged. Have you heard? Madam Beauty is back to her father's house, one woman would say, pounding yam harder for emphasis. After 5 years of eating her husband's food and giving him nothing, not even a cheek, she has been finally sent back, another would reply, eyes wide with false pity, but tongue dripping with joy. And the laughter, it was plenty. Some even clapped their hands like they had been waiting for the news since the day she married Akunna. The bitter maidens who once fought over him now chewed the gossip like sugarcane. Did we not say it? Did we not say that beauty without a child is like a drum with no sound? They mocked loudly at the stream, splashing water with their buckets and laughing until their babies on their backs joined in with squeals. But the sharpest knife in Achalugo's chest was not even the gossip. It was Akuna himself. The man she once loved with her whole heart didn't even come looking for her. No word, no message, no single step to ask for forgiveness. It was as if he had been waiting for her to leave all along. And before Achalugo's tears could dry, Akuna had married another woman. The news tore her heart like clothes cut in turns. The villagers doubled their mockery. You see, Akuna has moved on. He has taken another wife. Ha ha ha! Meanwhile, Achalugo is still in her father's house, crying into her wrapper. The insults followed her everywhere like stubborn flies that refused to leave spilled palm wine. Yet, in the middle of the storm, there was light. Her parents stood by her like iroko trees, shielding her from the wind of shame. They comforted her, wiped her tears, and reminded her that she was still their jewel. And her friend Adama, Adama was always there. She came often, held her hand, whispered encouragement, and refused to let Achalugo drown in her sorrow. And so, before the dust from Achalugo's departure had even settled, Akuna took himself another woman from the kingdom. Her name was Otonwa. And if you thought Achalugo was beautiful, Otonwa's body was a whole festival on its own. She was well endowed, 2 big breasts like ripe pawpaws, hips wide enough to block a narrow path. Whenever she walked through the market, men would nearly twist their necks out of joint just to follow her steps with their eyes. But what made Akuna's chest swell with pride was not just her beauty, it was her family background. Everyone in Ughelli knew that Otonwa's family tree was blessed with fruitfulness. In fact, if a woman from that family sneezed too hard, people would ask her when she was due. Children flowed in that lineage like water from a broken calabash. So, Akuna was overjoyed. At last, his dream was within reach. Very soon, tiny feet would be running about his compound, chasing goats and scattering firewood. His heart leaped at the thought. And true to his hopes, just a few months into the marriage, Otonwa became pregnant. The news spread like wild bushfire, and Akuna's joy knew no bound. His chest grew wider, his steps heavier with pride. He dashed straight to the palm wine joint and shouted louder than everyone else, "My friends, my enemies, rejoice with me. I am now a man. Do you hear me? A man. My wife is pregnant. This is a proof that my manhood is not just working, it is working overtime." The men hailed him, slapping his back, until he nearly choked on laughter. Calabashes of palm wine were raised in his honor. "Hey, Akuna," they chorused, "the lion of Ughelli, the fertile fisherman, the conqueror of wombs." And as they drank, their tongues wagged like restless goats. So Achalugo was indeed bad luck, useless beauty. All those years of wasting his time, tying his destiny, see how another woman has entered, and immediately carried his seed. Laughter filled the air, and Akuna beamed like a king returning from war. But what he didn't know was that the pregnancy did not come without a price. From the very moment Otonwa discovered she was carrying a child, Akuna's life turned upside down. His joy soon began to taste like pepper. Because my people, Otonwa showed him shaky. Sleep became a stranger in his compound. At midnight, she would wake him up crying, her voice loud enough to wake the ancestors. "My baby needs pepper soup," she wailed. And before she even finished the sentence, Akuna would leap up like a soldier under attack, rushing into the kitchen to prepare pepper soup in the middle of the night. And it wasn't a one-off matter, it happened again and again. Other nights, she would roll on the bed, clutching her belly. "The baby needs massage," she would cry. Even if Akuna was snoring like a tired goat, she would cry and cry until he woke up to press her stomach gently, whispering prayers for the unborn child. And that was not even the end. Some nights, she demanded entertainment. "Sing for the baby," she would command. Or worse, dance for the baby to relax. If only you had seen Akuna at midnight, his waist shaking awkwardly like a stiff palm tree in harmattan wind, his voice croaking songs out of tune, trying desperately to please both wife and unborn child. It was a sight that could even make the ancestors laugh in their graves. But Akuna didn't complain. Not yet. He was willing to sacrifice anything, absolutely anything, just to hold that child and prove his legacy was secure. When Utonwa finally gave birth, the cry that echoed from her heart sent shockwaves through the whole kingdom of Ughelli. Twins, baby boys. The midwives shouted, running out with both babies held high like trophies. Akuna burst out of the room like a madman, rolling on the floor, dancing, screaming at the top of his lungs. My manhood na the correct Obonga, one shot and twins follow. He tore his wrapper, jumped, ran around the compound and nearly split the village of Ughelli into two with joy. The villagers rushed in from every corner, clapping and hailing him. Even Norma, his mother, fell to the ground, rolling and shouting, "The gods are faithful. I will die a happy woman." That day turned into a full festival. Drums, palm wine, meat and dancing filled the air till nightfall. It was indeed a day the village of Ughelli would never forget. Before anyone could even finish talking about the twins, Utonwa's belly began to grow again. Just months after childbirth, she was pregnant. You needed to see Akuna's pride as he moved through the village like a chief with new feathers. He walked into the palm wine joint with his chest puffed like a pregnant hen. "My people," he announced, "don't call me Akuna again. That name is for small boys. From today, my name is the Sharp Shooter, because when I enter, I score without restraints." The men hailed and cheered. "Hey, Sharp Shooter! Akuna the fertile fisherman, the man whose gun never misses targets." Akuna smiled like a lion that had eaten the last goat in the pen. Poor Achalugo became the talk of every guard of palm wine. Bad luck woman. If she had stayed, Akuna would still be childless. Back home, Akuna's joy quickly turned into work, heavy work. With Utonwa now pregnant again, she ruled him like a general. At night, when others were sleeping peacefully, Akuna would be awake carrying and rocking his twin boys, while Utonwa commanded him like a drummer commanding dancers. "Bring pepper soup," she would cry at midnight. "The baby's hungry." And off Akuna would go, cooking under the moonlight, sweat dripping, eyes half closed from sleep. If it wasn't pepper soup, it was massage. "The baby needs belly massage," she would insist. Other nights, dance for the baby. Hey! The things Akuna saw in those nights, only the moon can testify. He danced and twisted his waist. But he didn't complain. For the sake of fatherhood, he was ready to do anything. At last, Utonwa delivered again, and this time, she gave birth to triplets. Hey! Ughelli nearly collapsed with noise. Akuna's shoulders were now as high as a chief's throne. 5 children in less than 2 years, he boasted. "Call me Sharpshooter the Great." His mother's laughter filled the air. The villagers hailed him, danced and chanted his name till night fell. Before anyone could finish saying congratulations, Utonwa's belly swelled again. She was pregnant once more. By this time, Akuna's smile didn't reach his eyes. His joy had started to fade. The weight of responsibility was choking him, because Utonwa, hey, that woman, was as lazy as a sleepy goat. She did nothing. All she knew how to do was to paint her face like an Ijele masquerade and sit like a queen. She refused to sweep, refused to cook, refused to wash and take care of her own children. And her energy matched Akuna's in size. Anything he wanted, she gave him 10 times more. She was not there to take rubbish, even though her laziness was 10 times greater. Anytime he tried to complain, she would hiss, plant her hands on her hips and shout, "You think I'm at Achalugo? Don't try me, oh. Don't try me, don't you dare. You wanted children, Abi? Here are they. So you expect me to give you children and still take care of them? That is your job, Sharpshooter. If you can't handle it, get a maid. My job here is to fill your compound with children. Akuna could only stare in horror. Hey, this one passed Akuna's power. The villagers who always overheard their quarrels would whisper, our sharpshooter they collect though. But Otonwa didn't care. She was on operation Give Him Children. And by the time 5 years had passed, Akuna had 10 children, 9 of them boys. Lazy, wild, untamed boys who roamed the streets like bush goats. Their bellies were big like talking drums, their manners non-existent. Who even had the time to train them? Was it their mother, who was always busy, going out, running from one hut to the other to hear and spread the latest gist, while her house was a battlefield of dirty clothes and scattered calabashes? Most times, Akuna strapped one baby on his back while fishing, his face squeezed in misery. He worked harder than ever, but it was never enough. The children ate like locusts. The food finished faster than palm wine in a festival. Yes, Akuna had children. A man, full in the eyes of the village, but he was running mad. His lazy wife was pregnant again, and now he had 10 mouths to feed, 10 pairs of dirty feet stamping through his compound like soldiers. His home had turned to a noisy marketplace. The villagers whispered and laughed behind his back. Our sharpshooter is now the shooter of trouble. Every day, Akuna sat under the tree in front of his hut staring into space. His mind wandered back to Achalugo. How neat the compound used to be when she was there. How she cared for him, her laughter, her patience. Tears would gather in his eyes. Now, he was the one washing baby wrappers, cooking, cleaning and fishing all at once. The mates he tried to employ never lasted. Otonwa would insult them until they fled. Akuna was trapped in his own creation, a prisoner of his so-called manhood. One evening, as Akuna returned from the market tired and hungry, a boy ran up to him shouting, "Papa twins! Papa triplets! Your wife has delivered again, oh!" "What?" Akuna gasped. "She gave birth to triplets again," the boy replied, eyes wide. Akuna froze. His basket fell, his head spun. That meant 13 children. 13! He looked to the sky and muttered weakly, "Hey, this one don't pass manpower." Before anyone could ask if he was alright, Akuna rolled his eyes back and he slumped to the ground like a fallen tree. The villagers screamed and rushed to him, pouring water on his face. "Wake up, sharpshooter. You are not permitted to die. Who will take care of all these children?" They found him, shouted, prayed and poured more water, but Akuna lay there motionless. His face wet, his body trembling. The man who once danced with pride was now lying in the dust, defeated by the very blessing he had chased with all his heart. Trust the villagers of Ugeli. They didn't let Akuna rest in peace or in faith. The moment he slumped, they rushed him like bees to honey. They fanned and poured water on him until he woke up. But that day became the darkest day of his life. His joy had turned to ashes, his pride to pain. The burden before him was heavier than a full canoe on shallow water. 13 children, lazy, wild and untamed. A house filled with noise and quarrels. His head began to pound like a talking drum. What used to be a home of laughter was now a prison of madness. The house stank of unwashed clothes, half-eaten food and baby cries. Flies danced freely on every calabash. Akuna could no longer rest his head in peace. From morning till night it was "Papa, Papa," followed by cries, shouts and fights. The compound echoed like a busy market. He would sweep, wash, fetch water and still go fishing, yet nothing was ever enough. Each day he grew thinner, his eyes hollow like a tired lantern. He would look around and mutter, "Chineke, this is not what I planned. This is not what I prayed for." The same man who once dreamed of children running around his compound now wished they would all take a nap at the same time, even if just for 5 minutes. When a man's house becomes too loud, the palm wine joint becomes his church. Every evening, Akuna would drag his tired body there, sit under the tree, and drink away his sorrow. He laughed that strange laughter that never reached his heart, the kind of laughter that hid tears inside. He told jokes no one understood, smiled when his eyes were red, and nodded to every story, whether he heard it or not. The weight of his life pressed on him like a heavy stone. He no longer looked at Utonwa. In fact, he began to fear her. The woman who once made his heart beat with joy now made his legs tremble with dread. Then came that fateful night. Utonwa, with her big frame and heavy breathing, walked up to him and whispered, "My husband, it's been long. Come and hold me." Hey, besties. The way Akuna jumped from that bed, you would think someone shouted, "Fire!" He ran out of the room with his wrapper flying in the air, screaming, "Help me, oh! Help me! If I touch her again, I will die. She will give me quadruplets this time." He ran round the compound barefooted, panting like a hunted goat, while Utonwa stood at the door looking confused and annoyed. That night, the villagers who heard his cry burst into laughter till morning. The mighty sharpshooter of Ugeli had finally surrendered his weapon. By the next morning, Ugeli village was on fire, not with flames but with laughter. You see, when a man's pride collapses in Ugeli, the villagers don't just whisper, they hold a full village festival of gossip. Every corner of the market was buzzing, palm wine joints were full before noon. And what were they discussing? Not the price of yams, not even the weather. Not the chief's new goods, no. It was Akuna, the once proud sharpshooter of Ugeli, who had now become the runner of the night. "Hey, did you hear what happened last night?" one woman shouted as she pounded fufu in her kitchen, her peso almost hitting the ground out of excitement. My sister, I heard though," another replied. Utonwa called him to bed and the man ran away, screaming like a witch that saw sunlight. Laughter tore through the air. Women slapped their thighs, men bent double. Even the goats in the street seemed to join in the drama. At the stream, the gossip flowed like water. "He said he will die if he touches her again," one maiden cried, mimicking Akuna's terrified voice. "Ah, my people, our sharpshooter has finally retired his gun," another shouted, throwing her bucket on the ground as they all burst into fresh laughter. The palm wine joint, however, was where the real mockery took place. The same men who once hailed him as the lion of Ugeli now teased him mercilessly. "Akuna, my man," one said, pretending to toast him with a calabash. "We now call you the fisherman of fertility. You cast your nets too much and now the river has swallowed you." Another added, "Next time you see beauty with big stomach and nyash, run oh. You don't need more children, you need deliverance." The crowd roared, the laughter rolled across the joint like thunder. And to crown it all, the same women who once fought over him under the udara tree were now leading the gossip chorus. Look at our handsome fisherman, the gods have humbled him. When Achalugu was there, his compound was paradise. Now it smells like spoiled fish. Even Norma, his mother, could no longer hide her shame. She moved around the village quietly, her face hard, wrapper tied carelessly, and her lips always bumbling. The same woman who once shouted, "Give me grandchildren, no," now avoided every gathering where children cried, because 13 cries were already enough to drive her mad. As for Akuna, he couldn't step out without feeling the sting of mockery. When he passed, the villagers would greet him with exaggerated respect, bowing and hailing, "Sharpshooter, the man of many blessings." But the laughter that followed behind told another story. His pride was gone, his peace buried, and the noise of his children echoed in his head even when he was far from home. He had chased beauty, mocked humility, and married trouble. And now the same villagers who once envied him now pitied and mocked him in equal measure. Ugeli had learned a new proverb that season. The man who mocked a woman for not bearing fruit now prays his harvest would stop multiplying. By now, Akuna had lost every ounce of respect he once commanded in Ugeli. The man who once walked tall with pride now moved like a shadow, broke, worn out and living from hand to mouth. His fishing nets were torn, his canoe leaking, his strength long gone. The same villagers who once held him now pitied him with half smiles and mocking whispers. Children called him Papa 13 behind his back, and some even shouted, "Sharpshooter, don't retire," whenever he passed. His wife no longer looked at him with love. His children no longer feared him, and his mother had quietly moved to her brother's house, unable to bear the shame any longer. Most days, Akuna could be found at the palm wine joint, his best friend now being the calabash of sweet sadness. He sat there from sunrise to sunset, drinking away his frustration. And then, one fateful evening, trouble found him again. He had been drinking quietly when a man at the next table shouted across, Akuna. So, after all your noise and suffering, where is the result of your sweat? Where is all your wealth, all your fish, all your big talk? You are now a failed fisherman. The words hit Akuna like a slap. His pride, though buried, still had breath. He slammed his calabash on the table and backed back. And look at you. Where is your manhood? That dangling thing between your legs, what is its use? 3 years of marriage and nothing to show for it. Me, I am a sharpshooter. I enter straight and score 2-3 goals at once. The crowd laughed nervously, but the man's face twisted in mockery. He stood, eyes blazing, and fired back. Look at this fool, this animal. So you think we don't know the truth? Because people call you sharpshooter, you've been feeling like a king. Let me educate you today. While you were busy mocking and cursing that innocent woman Achalugo, calling her barren and useless. She was guilty of loving a fool. That was her only offense. The palm wine joint went dead silent. The man continued, his voice rising like a storm. You blame her for your childlessness. But tell me, sharpshooter, how come Achalugo is now married to another man in a neighboring kingdom and already has 3 beautiful children? Akuna's smile froze. His throat tightened. And what are you trying to say? He asked, his voice shaking. What I am trying to say. The man laughed bitterly. Are you so foolish and deaf, Akuna? Look around. Look at those 13 children in your compound. Which of them even looks like you? The crowd gasped. Your wife, he continued, jabbing his finger into Akuna's chest, is a community property. Her waist is Ukunu, salt waste, the pride of every drunk man in Ughelli. Akuna staggered back, sweating profusely. You lie, he shouted, his voice trembling. Lie? The man backed, turning to the other men at the joint. Am I lying? Tell him now. The men sat in silence, their faces heavy, their eyes avoiding Akuna's. Okafor, the man shouted, suddenly pointing at one of them. Did you not sleep with his wife? Speak, how many children did you have for him? Tell this idiot who thinks he's better than me. Okafor dropped his head like a thief caught red-handed. Silence. That silence said it all. The man spread his arms and shouted, Oh! At least my wife is not a community property. At least I am not raising children that are not mine. You are impotent, Akuna. Impotent and blind. The laughter that followed was cruel. It sliced through Akuna's pride like a knife through ripe fruits. He stood there frozen, sweat pouring down his face. His lips trembled, but no words came out. The look on the men's faces confirmed what he dreaded. They all knew. They had known. Anger burned in his chest like fire. His heart pounded, his mind screamed, and his dignity crumbled like a broken pot. Without another word, he turned sharply and stormed out of the joint, his steps heavy with shame, his wrapper flying behind him. He needed to confirm something. He needed the truth, even if it shattered what little was left of him. Akuna stormed into his compound like a raging storm. His eyes were red, his chest heavy, his mind boiling. His 13 children sat on a large raffia mat in front of the hut, dragging food from one calabash, shouting, crying, and snatching pieces of meat from one another. The pot had already fallen over. 2 of them were wrestling. One was licking soup straight from the floor. The noise alone could wake the ancestors. But for the first time in his life, Akuna didn't shout. He just stood there, watching, studying their faces, one after the other. Then his heart froze. None of them looked like him. Not one. Ijuwa's words began to echo in his head like thunder. Which of those children looks like you? He looked again. His first twin boys, Ah, the nose, the eyes, those were Okafos. His last triplets, they had Agus bent legs. His chest tightened and his mouth went dry. All these years, all his sweat, his sacrifices, his labor had been training another man's child. The fisherman of Ughelli had fished for others. Otonwa! Otonwa! He roared, his voice tearing through the compound like a war drum. Otonwa ran out of the hut, tying her wrapper roughly. Why are you shouting my name like that? Did I steal your goat? She snapped. Akunna charged at her, his breath heavy. Tell me, he panted. Whose children are these? Speak! Whose seed did you plant in my house? Otonwa looked at him without a hint of fear. She didn't even deny it. Doesn't matter, Akunna, she said with a smirk. You wanted children, Abi? You got them. Or do you want me to remind you that you are impotent? You expect me to sit here so that I'll be mocked by the same villagers who mocked Achalugo? Never. I simply saved your name. The word stabbed him deeper than any knife could. No. No, he screamed. Tell me it's not true. Not even one of them is my child. Ah! His legs trembled, his breath caught. His grip loosened, and he staggered back. Then, with a loud cry that echoed across the entire village, Akunna fell to the ground, clutching his chest and wailing. It was a cry that came from the bottom of his soul, a cry of regret, shame, and heartbreak. But suddenly, as if possessed by rage, he jumped up, grabbed a cutlass and chased Otonwa, who was already screaming and running through the streets of Ughelli barefooted, her wrapper flying in the wind. Come back here, witch! Give me back my ears, Akunna roared. Villagers rushed out, shouting and laughing, some trying to hold him down, others watching the drama unfold like a festival play. They finally held him as he fell to the ground, crying uncontrollably. His tears soaked the dust. His voice cracked as he screamed, Everything I have. Everything I have, I gave everything and all is gone. I have suffered for nothing. Otonwa disappeared that night and never returned. Akunna, once a proud sharpshooter of Ughelli, became a man of sorrow. The villagers called him the fisherman who caught another man's fish. His compound, once full of laughter, now stood as a graveyard of memories. The children roamed like strangers, each one a reminder of his shame. He no longer cared for them. He stopped going to the river, stopped walking, stopped smiling. The man who once shook Ughelli with joy now walked with his head bowed, shoulders bent and soul broken. The children of the village, mischievous and sharp-tongued, made up a mocking song about him, and whenever he passed, they would dance in circle, clapping their hands and singing.
Akunna the sharpshooter, hey. He shot his gun but missed. Hey. He caught a fish that wasn't his. Hey. Sharpshooter with a bullet, oh. Sharpshooter with a bullet, oh. Dance, oh, dance, oh, dance and laugh. Sharpshooter has lost his stuff. He mocked Achalugo, the gentle dove, boasted loud of his manly love. Now he weeps from night till dawn, chasing children that aren't his own. Akunna the sharpshooter, hey, he shot his gun but missed. Hey, he caught a fish that wasn't his. Hey, sharpshooter with a bullet, oh, sharpshooter with a bullet, oh. Dance, oh, dance, oh, dance and sing. Mock the man who mocked the king. Children, none resemble him. The faces shine, his future dim. He bragged too much, the gods took note. Now sorrow lives inside his throat. Akunna the sharpshooter, hey, he shot his gun but missed. Hey, he caught a fish that wasn't his. Hey, sharpshooter with a bullet, oh, sharpshooter with a bullet, oh. Clap your hands and beat your feet, prideful men will face defeat. Once he danced and sang with glee. Now he hides where no eye see. Once he shouted, I score with pride. Now he runs when children chide. pride with grin. Sharpshooter with a bullet, oh. Ugili laughs till the end of day.
The children would burst into laughter, rolling on the ground, chanting his name as he scattered through the village. Their laughter filled the streets as he limped past quietly, head bowed, eyes wet. He had become a proverb, a living lesson. A man who mocked the gods of patience, only to be mocked by fate itself. And as for Achalugo, her story was different. She had moved on and found peace in a neighboring kingdom. Her new husband, Chike, was a humble farmer, kind, gentle, and full of laughter. He loved her sincerely and valued her more than gold. They were blessed with 3 beautiful children, 2 boys and 1 girl, each a proof that patience and goodness never go unrewarded. Achalugo often told her husband about Ugeli, about the man she once loved and about the lessons life had taught her. And every evening, as the sun set behind the hills, she would smile at her children and say, "My darlings, never mock the weak, and never boast in pride, for the gods have long memories, and they always repay in full." And so, Achalugo lived happily ever after, while the once proud sharpshooter of Ugeli became a tale told under the moonlight. A tale of pride, folly, and the danger of mocking the innocent. Hey besties, we've come to the end of this amazing story, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I would love you to share your thoughts in the comment section. And if you enjoy our stories and you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do not skip this video without hitting on the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new stories. Thank you so much for all your support, your encouragement, your prayers, and your kind words. They mean so much to me. Right now, I have to go and see you in our next story.